I was 30 minutes past midnight on the ring road when the sky broke open. Rain hammered the windshield so hard the wipers just smeared water into more water. An underpass loomed ahead, the kind that always floods, and a sea of red brake lights vanished into a sheet of spray. I eased off, hazard lights blinking, and rolled to a stop behind a stalled hatchback half submerged up to its rims. The driver's door cracked open. A man stepped out, hunched, his shirt plastered to his skin. He waved at me with a shaking hand, then pointed down at his tires. I cracked my window 2 inches. He shouted something I couldn't hear, rain drowning everything. He moved closer, eyes too wide for comfort. "Phone?" he mouthed. I held up mine. He nodded quickly, then pointed behind me, past my car, toward the shoulder, where another figure stood under the underpass, just inside the darkness, like a statue in a niche. I hadn't noticed him. He didn't wave. He didn't move. Traffic had bottlenecked. We were 3 cars deep, trapped between the flooded dip ahead and a concrete barrier behind. The man outside rapped on my window again, harder. I flinched. Water beaded his eyelashes. "Call?" he mouthed, teeth chattering. I told myself I was being paranoid. I thumbed 112, pressed the phone to the glass so he could see. He leaned closer, breath fogging the narrow slit of my window. A knuckle tapped the rear passenger glass on the opposite side. I froze. The second figure had vanished from the underpass. My breath caught so suddenly I coughed. In the mirror, a blur slid along the blind spot of my car, low and quick. "I'm calling for a tow," I shouted, for show, and hung up before it connected. My doors were already locked. I used my left hand to kill the engine, then drew the key out as quietly as I could. The man's eyes followed the motion. Something like calculation flickered there. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Behind me, the last car in the line lurched, then reversed, tires spitting water. A horn blared. It jerked again, angled, mounted the shoulder with a groan and clawed past us, scraping muck, mirrors nearly kissing concrete. As it squeezed by, its driver honked and gestured frantically for me to follow. The man at my window saw it too. The smile slipped. He stepped back, then banged the glass once, as if to hurry me. The knock was too angry to be a plea. I threw the car into reverse and mimicked the other driver, heart punching at my ribs. Tires spun, then caught. The back of my car fishtailed, water blooming up in dirty wings. I didn't look at the man again. I didn't look at the underpass. I scraped past the stalled hatchback and a concrete scab. The wheel jerked. A shadow broke from the darkness and slapped the passenger handle. It rattled, but held. I punched the accelerator. The car bucked up onto the shoulder, and then, suddenly, I was free, skidding onto the on-ramp as water sheeted off my windows. At the petrol pump a kilometer up, light and people and noise felt like waking from a chokehold. The other driver was there, white-knuckled on his steering wheel. We didn't talk at first. Then he said, "They pretend to need help when it floods. 2 men, sometimes 3. Doors, handles, anything open." The CCTV attendant nodded grimly, like this was old news. "Happened last week. Pulled a woman out through a half-open window," he said. "We told the police. They patrol now, when it rains. I still drive that road sometimes. When it starts to pour, I don't touch the underpass." The feeling of that hand on my handle, the sudden, intimate jolt of someone trying my door in the dark comes back as clean as the rain on my face. The Monsoon had a way of getting inside our building no matter what the management promised. By the second week, the paint bubbled in little blisters near the baseboards, and the stairwell smelled like wet newspaper. The power line sagged, and the elevator died the first storm. So the night the lights went out, no one was surprised. We lit our candles like it was ritual. On the 3rd floor, you could hear the rain louder, like a curtain drawn right outside the hallway. I was alone. My roommate had gone home for the weekend. I set pots under our leaky kitchen window and moved the rug away from the balcony door. And then someone knocked. 3 slow knocks, then a pause, then 2 more. I checked the peephole. It was fogged with condensation, just a dull circle of light and a distorted silhouette. "Yes?" I said. "Maintenance," a male voice answered. "Leak checks. Manager sent me. We had a rule in the building chat. No letting anyone in without ID when the lights were out." I asked to see his badge. He held something small up to the peephole, but the lens turned it into an abstract dark shape. "Can you show it to the camera in the lobby?" I said. "I'll call the manager to confirm." Silence. The dripping in the kitchen seemed louder. The man shifted. The floorboards in the hall creaked. "If I go down, I can't come back up," he said, almost annoyed. "It's raining like hell. Just open for a second." Something about the way he said second made my skin pull tight. I kept my hand flat against the latch anyway, feeling the cheap metal warm under my fingers, and I decided to make noise. I dragged a chair across the tiles. I turned the television up on the phone to some loud show laugh track. "I'm not alone," I called. "Just wait. Manager is on his way." Another silence, but this one had weight. Then the softest exhale through teeth, right up against the door, like he'd leaned in close to listen. The peephole darkened completely. I stepped back. A door down the hall opened. My neighbor, Mrs. D'Souza, old and fearless, peered out into the black. "Who's there?" she called. The silhouette at my door moved, quick and smooth, away from the peephole. I didn't see where he went. Mrs. D'Souza clicked her tongue and shut her door again. 5 minutes later, my phone finally pulled in a message through the weak cell signal. "Manager, no checks tonight. Keep doors locked. Police advised." Someone tried door handles on second floor. I didn't sleep. Around 2, the rain lightened enough that I could hear subtler sounds. The building settling, water dripping into a bowl, the wind nudging the balcony door. Then something else, bare feet slapping lightly against concrete, somewhere in the stairwell. They paused outside my door. The handle twitched. Once, the weight of a person leaned against the door so gently the wood sighed. I texted the group. "He's on 3rd, outside 305. A light flicked on under Mrs. D'Souza's door, then another across the hall. The stairwell burst into echoing voices. All at once, "Who is it?" "And police are coming, and we see you." The weight disappeared. Feet, fast now, scuffed downward, then the heavy metal door to the ground floor slammed against its stopper. A single, gunshot loud sound. In the morning, there were wet footprints on the landing, man-sized, tracking from the stairwell to our door and then off toward 309. A police officer took a photo with a bored expression.
"Police are coming!"
Like this was ordinary, Facebook-level petty crime. But near the stairwell window, where the paint blistered and the rain blew in, we found a small crescent of dried mud with a tire tread pressed into it. Not car tires. The thin, exact pattern of a scooter. Whoever he was, he'd ridden it up onto the front stoop, under the overhang, just out of sight of the street, and waited for the lights to go out. I still hear the breath through the door sometimes, when it rains. We should have turned around at the tea stall, when the owner said the pass floods by evening, but we had a hotel booked, a friend's birthday, the idiotic belief that an extra 20 kilometers was nothing. By the time we reached the valley road, the clouds had fallen low enough to crawl. Visibility was a tight tunnel. The wipers clicked on frantic repeat. Mud washed across the asphalt in thin, writhing snakes. A hazard light flashed ahead. A small sedan parked at an angle, nose to the barrier. A man stood in the lane with both arms up, as if directing planes. He was soaked through and shaking. I slowed automatically. Aditi beside me put a hand on the dash. "Careful," she said. "Careful." He came to my window and knocked. Up close, his face was raw with cold, lips bluish. "Help," he said, too loud over the rain. "My wife. She's
Help!
in the ditch.
My wife!
She slipped."
She slipped into the ditch!
He pointed into the darkness beyond the barrier.
They know where I am!
I looked
We
where
have
he
to
pointed.
leave now!
Beyond the metal rail, the ground dropped off into brush and rocks, and then the blackened gleam of a flooded ravine. "Call 112, Aditi said, already unlocking her phone. He shook his head too fast. No time. The water has just come. Just look, please. Something about the way he didn't look at Aditi, how his eyes kept darting up the road behind us, pinged a warning I couldn't place. My high beams washed the hillside with light. Raindrops glittered in suspension. No movement, no cry. Across the ravine, deeper in the trees, someone flashed a small light, twice, and then killed it. Aditi pinched my wrist. "Drive," she said. "Now." The man saw it in our faces and stepped closer, his hand reaching for the rear door handle. It didn't open. Child lock. I eased around him, tires parting water, the car's nose brushing the barrier with a metallic hiss. He pounded once on the trunk and shouted something I didn't catch. In the side mirror, the small light across the ravine winked on again, and two figures detached themselves from the trees, sliding down toward the road, half hidden by brush. I expected guilt to flood me. It didn't. Only a taut, vibrating focus, the kind your body conjures when it decides to keep you alive. I pressed the accelerator until the engine whined. We took the next bend too fast, and the car skated for a breathless second. Then the road opened onto a construction turnout, and there Miracle of Miracles sat. A parked highway, patrol SUV, two officers hunched inside watching the weather like it was television. We told them. Their faces closed. One stood so quickly his notebook fell. He spoke into his radio and waved us to follow. We turned and crept back, blue lights washing the rain into lines. By the time we reached the hazard light, the sedan was gone. Mud slicked the shoulder where tires had turned hard, then hurried away. The ravine was still empty and loud. One officer walked the beam of his torch along the barrier and stopped. He bent, then swore. A length of nylon rope lay looped around the lower rail, still warm, the end cut clean. The officer looked at us and shook his head. "Third time this month," he said. "They stage a breakdown or an accident. They get you out of the car. The ones in the trees take your bag, your keys, sometimes the car, if you fight." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. He kicked the rope into the ravine like it offended him. We gave statements in the blue-lit rain, steam rising from the hot hood. He told us not to drive the pass in storms. We laughed, too high and thin. When I finally slept that night, I dreamed of the man's hand closing around a door handle that didn't open, and somewhere in the trees, a flashlight blinking twice, a signal I will always recognize too late. I got into the cab because of the rain. That's the truth of it. I would have waited for my friend to come back with a car if the sky hadn't torn itself apart. Instead, I watched the app driver inch along the curb with his hazards on and slid into the back seat, shaking rain from my hair, already apologizing for the mess. He smiled in the rear view, small and polite. He had the look of a man who'd driven too many hours, eyes a little flat, knuckles big from gripping a wheel.
Bad night.
"Bad night," he said.
Tell me about it,
I said. We pulled into traffic, moved 2 car lengths, stopped. The water ran down the windshield in veins. He took a turn I didn't recognize. "Shortcut," he said. "Main road is river." I glanced at the route on my phone. The blue line had rerouted by itself, wriggling through back streets toward an underpass I knew flooded even in mild rain. "Let's avoid the underpass," I said. "It's always bad." "Not tonight," he said. "They cleaned it." He said it with the certainty of someone who was quoting someone else. Halfway down the feeder road, he rolled his window a crack to clear the fog. The smell that came in was sweet and rotten, like wet leaves gone sour. We hit a pothole. The car's interior lights blinked, then came back. I pressed the window button to get some air. Nothing. The driver tapped the child lock switch on his door, casually. "Sorry," he said.
Please stop.
My last passenger was a
Get
kid.
out.
We hit the underpass. The water lay there in a shallow, deceptive mirror, black and oiled with rainbow. Cars ahead of us were turning around, 3 pointing dangerously close to the wall. My driver didn't slow. "No," I said, too sharp. "Please don't. I'll get out." He didn't look back. The tunnel swallowed us. Water rippled over the floorboards with a wet hiss. The car in front sputtered and died, hazard lights stuttering a heartbeat in the dark. The driver's phone on the dashboard lit his face from below, and for the first time, I saw his jaw working like he was chewing on nothing. I went very quiet inside. I opened the app and hit the emergency button. It spun, thinking, as if the storm had reached into the code and slowed that down too. I pretended to scroll my messages and instead opened a chat with my friend. Underpass. Child lock on. Call me. I said, I'll pay you extra to stop. He didn't answer. He kept both hands on the wheel, rigid. The tow truck lights hit us first, yellow bars strobing water into gold. They were parked just beyond the underpass, like a lighthouse, for the stupid. A man in a reflective jacket waded toward us with the determination of someone who makes a living off other people's bad nights. He slapped the driver's hood. Turn around, he shouted. It's deeper by the drain. My driver rolled down his window and leaned toward him with an eagerness that felt wrong. Can you push? He said. His eyes slid to me. The tow guy squinted past him, saw me, and took in more than I said. He jerked his chin at me, then reached across the driver with a practiced suddenness and popped the child lock and the manual door lock in one motion. He pointed at me, then at the sidewalk inches above the waterline. Now, he said. It wasn't a suggestion. I stepped out into shin-deep water so cold it bit. He took my elbow, steady and impersonal, and hustled me up onto the higher ground. Behind us, my driver killed the engine, then started it again, then killed it. Indecisive. The tow guy didn't look back. He put me under the overhang of a closed shop and handed me a foil blanket like the ones from the news. Call someone, he said. Don't go with him. That's when I saw the other tow truck, unmarked, pulling up silent. No lights. 4 men in the bed hunched under a tarp. They had the wrong look. Not of work, but of waiting. My driver lifted his hand at them, and their faces tipped up toward me. The tow guy stepped between us, the foil blanket loud in the rain. He said nothing, just stood there like a thin barrier made of bones and choice. A police jeep rolled in behind the second truck, lights on but siren off. Everything scattered. The unmarked truck reversed so fast the tarp flew. My driver put his car in neutral and let it drift toward the wall like he'd meant to be stuck all along. At the station later, the officer took my statement, like a man taking dictation, bored until we got to the part with the second truck. Then he looked up. It happens, he said. They prefer rain. Windows closed, roads empty, child locks. Don't blame yourself for getting in. When it rains now, I still take cabs, but I sit behind the driver, not behind the empty seat. I check the child lock before I roll, and I tip tow truck drivers like they are the last friendly people left when the city turns into water.